Call this meeting to order. Sorry about that.
I'm ready.
The roll call.
Frank Brzezowski.
Here.
Brian Chapman.
Here.
Mark Sikora.
Here.
Jessica Conklin.
Here.
Steve Kopp Jr. Don Duvall.
Here.
Mel Horton.
Here.
Colleen Hobart. Alan Ingalls. Dr. Kellogg.
Here.
Henry Jerzak.
Here.
Bill Kennedy. Rick Kimball.
Here.
Jim Kintz.
Here.
Al Lewis.
Here.
Tim Marshall. Devin McGinnis.
Here.
Dan Miller. Kelly Miller. Jim Page.
Here.
Lee Peterson. Dave Repsher.
Here.
Jeff Sweet.
Here.
Terry Simons. Mary Ann Teeter. Alternate. Okay. Mike Von Beveren.
Present.
Roll call's complete. We have a quorum.
It's a little out of order on the agenda, but I assume you've all received the minutes from the May meeting. Any additions, corrections, changes to the May minutes?
Motion to approve. Second.
Discussion? Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. New York State enforcement actions, have two. First is one Jonah Yoon from Plainview, New York. Suspended for 1 year, effective 5/31/19. Placed on probation for 3 years. Suspension was stayed, and he was also assessed a civil penalty of $2,000, of which $1,000 was stayed. Excuse me, for violations of Part 816A11. Second is Ursula Bazemore. Ursula is from South Ozone Park. Also suspended 1 year, 5/31/19, probation for 3 years, 5/31/19. Civil penalty of $2,000, of which $1,000 was stayed, and the suspension was stayed. And that was also enforcement of Part 18.16A11. So I'm going to forward those to the REMAC. Also, received July 15th correspondence from the state. Our document vault project, it's part and parcel to the state grants gateway and the ability for the council to be reimbursed directly for funding is complete. The document vault's been reviewed, and we're now pre-qualified to do business with New York State. We'll be notified when anything's expired so we can keep our pre-qualifications up to date. So the council, moving forward, will be able to receive reimbursement directly from the state. Last correspondence, dated July 23rd, 2019, from Joseph Clark. Please accept this letter as resignation from the council. I've recently accepted a job out of state. So we'll file that, and that leaves a vacancy in Schuyler County. Speaking of vacancies, we know that there perpetually are 1 or 2 vacancies in Schuyler County. We did receive an application for one. I'm going to go ahead and take care of that now instead of waiting for executive. The application comes from Brian Gardner. Brian is Bill Kennedy's deputy coordinator, works in the EMS management office in Schuyler County, with an emphasis on emergency planning up there. He's done a lot of work with the hospital and industry in Schuyler County. He's also a retired Corning City firefighter, and he comes recommended by Bill Kennedy and by Deborah Bailey from Schuyler Hospital. I'll pass his application around if anybody'd like to take a look at it. While that's going around, I'm going to move on to 4 alternate applications that the council received. The first is Richard Skebe, and he was submitted as an alternate by Mark Sikora for his seat from Chemung County. Have Benjamin O'Brien. Mr. O'Brien is an ALS supervisor at AMR Corning. Steve Kopp submitted him to be his alternate. Colleen Hulbert submitted Carol Hoover from Hornell. Karen's a member of Fremont Fire Department and EMT. And last is Joel Guthrie. Joel is submitted by Frank Brzezowski to be his alternate. Joel is Hornell City firefighter. And as we looked at the lineage during executive committee, we realized that this is probably the 3rd generation of the Fred Christ family to enter into council service. So out of those 4 applications, and since those are all recommended by current council members in good standing, we can either take the alternates separately, or I'd entertain a motion to
Make the motion to take them as a whole.
I second that motion.
further discussion. I'll pass them around just so folks can see. Any further discussion on any of those 4? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Back to Mr. Gardner.
Need a motion?
Yeah, unless you guys want to continue to review the application.
Comments and seconded motion from the.
Actually, yeah, it does, I guess. Thanks for reminding me. That does come with the support of the executive committee, and it comes to council as a second motion. So, any further discussion on Mr. Gardner? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Any abstentions?
I have not yet had a chance to look at his application.
Fair enough.
This one here, is that still Skylar's, or is it still Kennedy's?
There will still be a vacancy. And remember, the, yep, and prospective candidates for those seats have to be residents of Schuyler County. Yep.
I'll be an aye as well.
Last upcoming events, obviously, yesterday, September 11th, marked a significant anniversary in American history. And we continue on. Take just a moment to reflect on the 18th anniversary, September 11th. Thank you. Upcoming events, the vital signs, New York State's one and only EMS conference is coming up next month, October 24th to 26th, I believe are the dates.
Yes.
And
Pre-conference starts on Thursday the 24th. This year we have a couple of exciting additions to Vital Signs. We have added a pre-conference critical care transport provider review course. So it's a board certification review course. Typically you'll find it used for people that are interested in taking the CCP or the FPC exams on the paramedic side of the world, or the CCRN or CFRN exams on the nursing side of the world. Yes, I said the nursing side of the world. Our goal is to also attract some of our emergency medicine nurses and flight nurses that are in our EMS communities across the state. That pre-conference, that session of the pre-con will be 2 days, similarly to the other stuff as well. Each of the tracks, there's 5 different tracks, will have some pre-conference stuff. And then on Saturday and Sunday is the traditional conference, and there will be a critical care track as well. So if you currently hold those certifications and you need critical care specific CEUs, you'll be able to obtain them through those processes. Or if you want to challenge yourself, specifically at the ALS level, you can utilize those CEUs for your ALS curriculum as well. Additionally, this year at Vital Signs, we have gotten some agencies to sponsor a networking session. On Saturday night, there will be a networking session downtown. If you're familiar with Buffalo, the Pearl Street Brewery is located around the corner from the arena, whatever we call it this week, whoever bought the name. But it's a very nice venue, and it's right there on the waterfront and such. We're trying to pray to the snow gods that we will not have snow at the end of October in Buffalo. I cannot make any promises. I remember as a kid it snowing on Halloween. I picked the wrong costume that year. But the networking event will be open to any participants registered for the conference, and it'll be a great opportunity. If you've had the opportunity to go to some of the national conferences before, they typically have vendor-sponsored networking opportunities, and this is very similar to that. You know, an opportunity to get folks out and stuff like that. My understanding is there may be a couple other things that'll be coming down the pipe between now and then. I'm not 100% aware of them at this point. So I highly encourage all of you to try to make an opportunity to come up. I mean, it's close to home. You know, Buffalo typically struggles in attendance, and but we try to bring it to Buffalo in a fashion of getting it on this side of the state. So it's kind of important for us to support those types of events. Also, if you did not see, an email recently went out. We added a new section of awards for EMS innovation, and the deadline was this previous Monday. We've extended it. The department has extended it to next Monday, and these awards will be pushed out, or will be handed out at the Vital Signs Conference. So if you have anyone in mind, if you don't know what I'm talking about, then you probably need to get on some listservs, to include the council's listserv, but we can make sure that you have that information. Obviously, it's a short time frame turnaround-wise, but I will tell you that, again, the western region of New York State tends to be underserved when it comes to award nominations from the councils. So, if you guys have the opportunity, and it takes a little bit for some people to write some stuff up quickly, but there's definitely deserving people. I look around the table here, I guarantee there's deserving people for all those different categories. So those are the exciting things for Vital Signs.
And Buffalo has got to be my favorite venue.
We have a great time.
Questions for Don at Vital Signs Conference? Okay. Also, coming up December 7th, Brandon is hard at work on the second edition of our regional one-day conference. Would you want to go ahead and do a little update?
So, Dr. Kellogg and I just finalized a couple quick things. Otherwise, the agenda is set. 5 different speakers for 6 hours of continuing ed. We have a couple people come from all over, but mainly from the immediate area, the Rochester area. We have one of the sessions is a 2-hour kind of a, double session, physician coming out of Rochester talking and trying to review and really emphasize the importance of BLS and airway management, Dr. Aaron Parton. So we've got a good schedule. Again, the VA has been incredibly helpful in helping us plan this and make it happen. But yeah, December 7th, start at 8 a.m. and we'll be done by 4 p.m. The prices went up just ever so slightly, about $5 per category. So regional providers will be 25, out of region 35, students 20, RNs will be $30. But keep an eye out. I'll probably send the finalized agenda out no later than tomorrow or Monday. We have, on a related note, we do have more venue options than we did last year. So as far as I know, lunch was very crowded last year and will not be an issue this year. Some of the room conflicts that we ran into last year are not there this year. So there's no issues with conflicts, so we should be able to bring in more vendors and not have vendors all smushed in at everybody like last year. Can I talk about other educational things while we're on that note? Or do you want me to wait?
If it's a special event or work into doing that. Okay. We'll save for committee meeting.
When's that?
About third report down. So committee reports, systems committee.
Systems committee met for a short time. Mutual aid plans. We have pretty much all the mutual aid plans in. We're missing just a few of them that we're going to continue to get back. And the systems committee is going to meet prior to our December meeting to do a meeting separate from the council meeting so that we can actually spend a little bit of time reviewing those mutual aid plans. Then we have the application and approval for EMS agency to use EPCR for Skylar Ambulance. They have a small typo on their application where they have that they're going to NEMSIS version 2, and they're actually going to NEMSIS version 3. So, but we approved this, and the board is a seconded motion with the understanding that that change is going to be made to the original application, and that's brought forward as a seconded motion.
Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Okay, and we have a list of PAD updates from Watkins Glen Central School District, Wayland Cohocton School District, Corning City Fire Department, John G. Bowman Associates, and Hilton Garden Inn. Just as a note that all the medical directors for those are also members of the regional REMAC. So they're all physicians and good standing physicians that we know. That's brought forward as a seconded motion. As
Could you tell me one more time the names?
Watkins Glen Central School District, the Wayland Cohocton School District, Corning City Fire Department, John G. Bowman Associates, ULL Command, and Hilton Garden Inn and Associates.
Okay, thank you.
And again, the motion's not technically for approval, it's just to
It's
forward it to the
just
state.
that we have received and then we'll go forward.
Okay. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Okay, we have 3 PAD original applications. First one is from the Clemens.
The medical director for that one is Dr. Sheriff. He's also a retired emergency medicine physician and actually sits on the REMAC. Chilson Wilcox Auto Dealership, that's a physician from out of state but does hold a New York State license. And then Parish of the Most Holy Name of Jesus, which is in the city of Elmira. And they actually are using RNet for their medical director. Bringing those three forward as a executive motion from the systems.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
And just the last thing is just a notification that we were advised that we possibly within the next 60 days we may be receiving a CON application from the Western Part student for an existing agency with the CON that is actually providing usual service outside their CON authorized territory. And so that they've been cited by the state, and so now that they're going to do an expansion of their CON. So that's just a heads up that there may be a CON action going forward within the next 60 days. And that was all the systems.
Questions for systems? Okay. CMAC and SEMSCO?
We meet next week.
Next week. STREMS.
The big ticket items from our meeting last week. Number one, we approved a new regional diversion policy, which is hopefully going to make it much more limited, the times that hospitals can go on diversions. That should be rolling out in the near future. We're just putting together the accompanying document that lists the best ways to contact the various organizations. So if you are somebody that feels your organization should be contacted when a hospital goes on diversion, if you can let MSTAR know so that they can put that into the appendix to the diversion policy. And then the second item that I think is really big ticket is that we provisionally approved the new protocols, the collaborative as well as the BLS protocols for the region, pending all of the appropriate educational and testing stuff to be ready. And our anticipation is that if everything goes according to plan, by the end of the year, we should be able to have everybody in our region switched over to the new protocol, and that seems like that's in line with the state's goals as well. But for the moment, until all of those educational pieces are in place, we're still using the old protocols for the moment. Questions about either of those things? Yes, sir.
Does the state have to approve your diversion policy after that meeting when they said we can't divert?
They reviewed the draft policy and were pleased with it with a couple of minor amendments, which we've already made. So shouldn't be an issue at this point.
Are we going to have some kind of rollout
For the BLS, yes, again, in conjunction with the state rolling out its piece sometime this fall.
I'll speak on that. The state's piece is officially out now. At the REMAC meeting, it was not. The next day it was. And
Fantastic.
it's a soft roll at this point. There'll be a hard push coming out. Like hide in the corner. But the program agency will push it out just as soon as they get the official thumbs up relative to that. I know we kind of did a soft roll out at this point. There's a few bugs we're working through. The reality is this, the state has engaged in a contract with a learning management system, online learning management system. Our goal is to utilize that system more broadly in the future, but it's replacing the old Moodle system, if you're familiar with that, the old vital signs system days. And there are two programs on that system for the BLS protocol set. There is the quote-unquote long version or the short version. So the short version was developed for those regions who already have developed training specific to the BLS protocols and such, which is not your region, and then there is the long version. So everybody will be required to complete one of those versions if you have an EMT card in the state of New York. You will not be eligible for recertification of your EMT certification if you have not completed that when it comes time for your renewal post December 31st. So you will see an email coming out shortly. I know that we've done a soft with some. I've shared with certain individuals in the region the access to that just so that they can get in and try to tell us what the problems are. There really isn't many. It's just figuring out those little tiny bugs before it goes out to 65,000 people. So I would expect to see that before the month's end. In fact, I would probably expect to have it presented at CMAC next week. So look for that to come. You will require an email address. I know that will probably be, that on the program agency call, that seemed to be the biggest shocking issue, was that every EMT will now require an email address in the state of New York. Please work with your fellow brothers and sisters that do not have email on how to resolve that situation. There's a number of free email capabilities, but that's how you will get your login credentials, and that's how you will be able to reset your password when you forget it and such.
That's all I had.
Anything else?
Oh, I'm actually on that right now. No, they're using, was it collaboration? Yeah, so it's the one that, when we did the rollouts on the ALS side of the world for the telereduction and a few other things a couple years back, if you recall, like 15, 16 timeframe, if we did that. Same platform. And it's fairly easy, and it works on your mobile device. I did the protocol kit on my phone. So, it was simplistic.
Anything else for STREMS? Okay. Training and education.
Training and education did not meet, not for the lack of avenues that we've had over the summer. We did have a home conference with Dr. Kellogg about the protocols, and everybody started screaming when the due date was going to be in August, and how are we going to get this information out, and we didn't have a rollout plan as far as what we were going to do for that education piece, so to follow the protocols and what was on there. And then when we realized there was a loophole with the state as far as getting their piece together and what it was going to be, rather than duplicate the systems and have 2 and 3 that were going to not align with each other, we were waiting to see what was going to be rolled out first. So as for a better policy of having a way of tracking that and having a way of tracking all of our providers in the region, so that would come together at the same time. So we have been working on it. It hasn't been forgotten about, and there was some other things that we talked about that day on the phone as far as some other video clips that we could put on there on the website that were of interest to the regional providers, things that we thought were soft areas maybe weren't hitting on QAQI, which is another reason we wanted to start the website, so that providers could get in. They could use them as CMEs, but also more or less pet peeves that were dropouts in the area that we were seeing show up regularly on QIA, or just plain a review because there was a change in policy or something that worked better. So we're still working on moving that forward. With talk of our learning management system, and we were looking at several, and then whether the state was going to get theirs up, and who was going first, and how the money was going to be spent. And there's so much little avenue for us as council to get one of them systems started up. So we were just kind of in the loom between 3 places. So none of those have been forgotten about. They have been being worked on diligently to try and move some of this ahead. I also have 2 CLI applications. One we moved forward, it was the end of last year, in June, and for time frame for this one provider, because we're getting toward the end of his window, variant had to be put through council. We did forward it on to state. There was a few problems with the application, and we think we've got them worked out now. Thanks to the help with Don, with his assistance over the summer with on those, and many phone calls to him on many avenues of fronts that we had problems with over the summer. Was Barry Dye from Fremont. He completed his application and completed all the steps for the CLI. So it was to move forward with council. I talked to Donnie and we agreed to push down to state just for the time frame, so he wouldn't expire and get it put through, but it still has to be reviewed by council, so we will bring it before council tonight for a vote. So I'm putting that one out there for council's approval tonight.
So a motion to recommend Barry Dye for CLI certification. Got a second?
I'll second.
Got a bunch of seconds. Henry was first. Henry was
Motion.
first to second. Further discussion on Mr. Dye? I think he'll be a great asset to the St. James program. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay.
And I also had an application handed to me tonight, so it just came down. It's also for a certified lab instructor. It is a Joanne Woodard from Corning, South Corning Fire Department. It was all the appropriate stuff is filled out and appears to be here. It was operating her supervisor as Adam Neary, and it's being also brought before council tonight. I don't know too much about this individual, but the application.
Yes, and one of yours, Brandon?
Yeah, I can speak on behalf of Joanne. She helps out in Elmira and Corning, helped out in the back class a little bit. She's a
Actually,
solid.
why don't you make the motion first? You can do
I
that.
make a
huh?
motion to accept her application.
Need a
I'll
second?
second.
Now, through the discussion.
Yeah, Joanne she's a wonderful candidate. Very, very good with the students. I've sat in with her. She gives great feedback. Helped out a lot, even before she was kind of fully in the CLI process. She'll be a good addition.
Further discussion?
Not on this issue, but I really don't think the council should be taking papers the night of the meeting to vote on. It's a dangerous precedent. If Brandon wasn't here, does anybody else even know this person?
I do.
No, you don't. How are you supposed to be with me? Oh, well, you didn't tell me that beforehand. But
No,
it just.
point taken, and, as a reminder, we did set that policy a couple years ago for this very reason. We got to the point where everything was coming to council on council meeting night, and it really isn't fair for, sometimes, it's not fair for council members, nor is it fair necessarily for a CLI or a CIC candidate or anyone else to not have the benefit of everybody getting the opportunity to at least make a review. Same with PAD applications, notices of intent for EpiPens, Narcan. Folks, they really need to be in the council's hands at least 2 weeks before council
Technically, it
meeting.
wasn't council's hand, and probably is my fault, because I think it was actually some of the pay committee paperwork, and I found it that way, so that's why I could have given it to Frank earlier, but I figured that I sooner than I would have given it.
Fair enough.
I think it was,
Fair enough. I'm not complaining, it's
Yeah.
just like a general reminder, if we can get these kind of things in a couple weeks ahead of time, it would be much easier.
I think most of the time, Nick, you feel good about that. I get the emails a month ahead. Here's the applications to review before council, and if I've got any kickback, I can usually get them within 30 days. So most of the time, that does happen. This is kind of brilliant exception to the rule, and in various cases, it was the end of the season, and
Right.
he was running on that window time frame.
Yep. Fair enough. So, back to Ms. Woodard. Any further discussion? Motion to approve? Okay. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Okay.
I think this one has to be forwarded on the state, because I don't think this is. Arne Ogden information. I'll let you speak.
All right, great, thank you.
You do a better job at it than I will.
We have one more CME coming up in this neck of the woods in Bath. October 3rd, it's a Thursday, 6 to 7 p.m. Our Davenport has to put on some stroke education, so they're offering 1 hour free of charge dinner. So please come, please pass this along. I have plenty of flyers that I can give out. Again, it's free, 1 hour. We do need a count. We don't want to walk in, so please encourage you people to register. The link is right here. We just need to have a head count for who's coming and we provide that. And additionally, Dr. Kellogg and I are working on more of like a grand rounds for ALS, one of the positions that we earn it. And still in the works on that, so stay tuned. That's so on the horizon. Oh yeah, Frank reminded me. A little while ago, Arnett, we started the process of becoming accredited, an accredited program through an organization called KHEP, Committee on Accreditation of Allied Health Education Programs. And that's been a process that we started over 5 years ago. And we've had to kind of make some corrections and revisions and things like that. But we recently found out that we were approved. So.
That's wonderful.
For people that don't realize the significance of that, most states in the United States base their individual state certifications on national registry. And in order to be approved for national registry, paramedic programs are required to be accredited. That's been a problem in New York for a few years with a lot of paramedic programs that have popped up that aren't accredited. And what happens is students get into those programs, complete the program, and then find out that they've made New York certification, but they're not eligible for national registry certification because the program wasn't accredited. So it is a huge boost for the paramedic program in this region. The accreditation brings with it the ability to attract students from Pennsylvania and even farther out in search of a program that'll get them certified eventually in their home states or provide the mobility to move state to state. So congratulations on that.
Mr. Chairman, I would suggest we write a letter of congratulations to the CEO of Arnett. This is a big thing for us. It's been a question and a problem for years. We are very fortunate to have this thing.
Okay. Will do. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Frank, but I think the Arnett Ogden affirmation on the agenda was actually for their short form course sponsorship renewal. And I believe we did that through an executive action. It just required affirmation by the council. Course sponsor applications are traditionally due by July 1st of each year, which kind of falls in the middle of that, in the middle of our summer hiatus. So in the interest of getting Arnott's approval on time, we did that through executive action. So we'll bring that out. I'd make a motion that the council affirm the recommendation of Arnott Ogden, short form application for sponsorship renewal.
Need a motion for that?
I made the
You're
motion.
making. I'll second it.
You can second the
I will
motion.
second it.
Further discussion? Seeing none? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Fair enough.
Come on.
A little conflicted.
Anything else for training and education?
I'd just like to mention that we have a new CIC amongst our presence tonight, who has a nice shiny certificate that says he's met all the criteria, and he's got a certificate to prove it now. So, with the help in education and lack of educators out there, and the mandates and time that's put on these providers to do their own providing for their own services, as well as the time to get educated as an instructor, with a lot of time, and a lot of money on their own. So, nice job. Good job.
No speeches.
Thanks, Tom.
Public information.
Couple things, Nikki would have sent out an email to you guys in regards to proposals, in regards to having commercials done. We also need to know more information, or we move on this also, what we want as far as commercials. What we want to portray out to the public. At the council, we need to decide, and bring forward some ideas in that.
Seems like a great opportunity to stress the need for volunteers for ambulance corps, to me.
That does seem like the right ask.
The right ask. I mean, we need vets. Communities are struggling to survive.
Just to kind of highlight, because I got to briefly read the proposals and for a little bit of backfill. One of the things that the state allows us to use council funding for are these ad campaigns. So Jeff got two proposals, one from WETM, one from WENY. And according to Jeff's email, WETM had a stronger local presence, but WENY had a wider presence. But the cost of the proposals that we were looking at were basically at what cost for how much time? Just a rough.
WENY was 5,000. WETM was almost close.
So didn't you give them the budget of 5,000? Just so happens. Yeah, these guys are good.
I'm familiar. WETM was 834 a month for 6 months.
It was about $5,000.
They're about the same.
So, but what are they offering in a nutshell?
If you look at it, I get into more detail. If we're going to decide to do this, I'd like to bring in representatives from both entities, saying exactly what we're going to get for our money, because WETM spells out a lot of different things. WENY did not spell out a lot of things.
I personally would vote against bringing in salesmen. I'd rather have them write down their best proposal, and we can go over it. I mean,
But I'd like to bring them something that I can tell them, this is what we want specifically.
ideas.
Okay.
As far as commercial and stuff like that.
Does this include production costs as well, or the production costs as well?
I did not see anything that says that, and Devin did the legwork on this, so I'd like to thank him for doing it.
I'd like to point out two things. There's a match that comes with this, so our 5,000 is actually $10,000 worth of advertising.
Both offered that, so that makes no change. As far as what is involved, WTM is more complete in their explanation of what they do offer. WNY was not. When I met with both of the agents there, WTM, they are gonna do the commercials. Like say if we did a stroke awareness commercial, whoever we decided to send to do that and speak, they would do the filming and everything like that, and then they would put it out. As far as the local versus the national, it's a little difficult for me to understand. I'm not a subject matter expert, but they have a program called ComScore. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of that. But as far as local stuff goes, for WTM, when they do their news at night, that would be considered local, right? And then Dr. Phil would be a more national program. WNY has great spots. They own, in terms locally, they own the national audience, if that makes any sense. Whereas WTM has a better, from my understanding, analysis, local presence. So again, I'm not a subject matter expert. I don't exactly understand how the advertising works that way.
So what you're saying is that on WTM, they would show our commercials for local programming, but on WNY, it would be local programming as well as national programming, the commercials would be?
Yes,
Okay.
to some degree. And then, WTM will, yeah, from what I understand, yes. But also, as far as we're concerned with the tri-county area here, or the three counties, I should say, and it seems to me WTM is more complete in that aspect.
Or we could split it, if we're getting match, we could do technically 5,000 for both, and it only costs us 5,000. And then find out if anybody responds, or if we're just wasting money.
So you're talking about $1,500 for each, whatever,
Correct.
So what we need, I think, is to come up with a sense of what the council thinks would be the most appropriate target, whether, LZD recruitment retention certainly, I think, is probably the most worthwhile. Or
Yeah, I think the only thing that I would add to that would be get trained in CPR, get trained in stop the bleed,
Stroke awareness.
that stroke awareness, the kind
You
of.
could tie a stroke awareness piece that catches somebody's eye and then roll into how volunteers are needed to, and expedite time to get these people to those, you're counting on that person to deliver this loved one to a hospital.
that's a good point. I mean, to tie one to the other actually kind of gives you more bang for your buck. Have you guys thought anything about help with direction on how to put something like this together? I guess my question is, I'm not that familiar with like Elmira College, but do they have a journalism school or advertising curriculum that?
If I understood Devin and Jeff correctly, that they're doing, this money also includes the production.
Okay.
So the WETM and WNY are going to produce.
So they would build the scripts and they build the script and convey the message that we want to convey.
I can't recall who it was that informed me, but there's also New York State has, I guess we'd call it a cookie cutter type of commercial for various things. I can't remember who it was, but I believe it was brought up the last week.
Look at the DOH Bureau of EMS website. There are spots that rotate through the Bureau website. Give me the evil eye.
No?
They're,
No, that's.
I've watched them. So, yeah.
I ask if he's familiar with them.
But you're right, maybe the idea of, here's why stroke treatment is so important, and here's how you can help your community, either roll into that. But it sounds like what we gotta do is drive down a little more specifically what it is that we want. Yes, sir.
Just sitting here looking at the proposal, it seems like WETM has a digital component to it and I think that's important to most anyone being general here, but many people under 40 don't have traditional cable and stuff like that. They're using streaming services, they're getting their news online. It seems like WETM might offer more bang for your buck as far as having that dual presence, both on the internet and also and traditional
Yeah, there's
TV.
also, and that's traditional, I guess, traditional social media is now Facebook and.
Fake news.
I don't.
If you can stand to read the comments on WTF.
Truth be told, though, I mean, if you speak to recruitment and retention, and what's your target population with that, and what avenues are your target population digesting? It may not be the 6 p.m. nightly news, it might be
Won't be
something.
Dr. Phil.
Yeah, so, food for thought, too, when, you know, it comes to decision time, who has kind of the dual purpose, too.
That's a good point. I don't know what your best time is.
I really think with a certain demographic, I really think that you're more heavily on.
It's a great
on
point.
The internet.
I think so, because I find.
And then streaming.
Once I sat and thought about it, I find myself looking at news feeds on my phone. Just take a look, and I think we had the same discussion when we talked about continuing education offerings. You know, podcasts and things that you can hold in your hand seem to be grabbing more attention.
So let me ask this, and should we be looking at Facebook ads?
Yes. I'd ask Devin a question. Did they identify the demographic that watches 6 to 8 p.m.?
They did, actually. WTM, if you look at the proposal in the email, it's much longer. I think WMI was a page or two. WTM gives a complete breakdown, and I can get the hard copy if it's not available. But one thing I was told, explained about the Facebook ads, that is the entire population of Facebook could potentially receive those.
Mhm.
And they, to some degree, are targeted, but it's not as, like if WTM's Facebook page was putting our commercial out, that would be anyone who subscribes to that would see it. Whereas if you advertise with Facebook, the corporation, you know, someone in Florida could be seeing our, join your local EMS here in the United States type of situation.
It's useless.
Correct.
Take their own.
Which is, this came from both of them in terms of social media. Again, I'm only going by what the salesmen were telling me.
Well,
So-
ETM's 240,000, quarter of a million people, 83,000 residences, so it's a pretty good saturation. What's the best mode to get it?
There was, again, it's that comp score thing, which will mean nothing to many of us here. That, I don't know if that was included in the packet, but it does show how many people watch the times. And with WTM, we're getting a lot of prime time.
Mm-hmm.
So say, like, the beginning of the commercial break for 18 News or whatever, it would be, right there. It'd be a 10-second ad of there at the beginning, at the end. WNY's, I noticed, was a lot of weekend stuff, which has less viewers, generally speaking. Those are some of my takeaways from that. But this is several months ago I acquired this information, so, or, I don't know, to be honest with you, but it's not recent.
So I would propose that maybe Public Information Committee send out a survey of council members, look at what our priorities are, and maybe focus on the top 2 or top 3 priorities, and then try to drill down a more concrete proposal.
Priorities as in content or priorities?
Priorities in content, yes. I think, because it seems like we don't know what we're gonna be able to get until we know what we're actually looking for.
I think I belabor it. I think we've pretty much identified what we feel is important. Recruitment and retention should be recruitment and retention should be number 1. Then the second priority should be some sort of pushing medical education, stuff like lead, CPR, stroke, that type of stuff. Just stick with that. I mean, why do we have to send out
before.
Maybe.
So.
I didn't expect a Spanish Inquisition.
Maybe
But,
you-
you know, what I'm saying is if we just kick this down the road, next thing you know, we're gonna be into the next budget cycle before we're ready to do it.
No, I don't disagree. I mean, I don't want to kick it down the road, but we need to,
Maybe you could take that with those, the three hot topics, and each one of them with retention.
Yeah.
And like three different commercials, so it's not the same commercial they're seeing, but it's bam, bam, bam.
I got that,
And then, you know, and.
And the EMTs, putting a turn to that.
Yeah,
one, but
yeah.
the EMT, you know, taking a look first.
Yeah, and there's three different commercials that these people can put together from a format and say, okay, here's the rollout, this is what we're looking at doing, and now you've got a role model to gauge by.
one thing I would like to see in this project, typically, if you look at the state's recruitment videos, they're pretty well sanitized. They basically look like commercial ambulance providers, no offense. But, no offense, but our region, our demographic, does include a lot of volunteer agencies, and
I've got no problem showing if you show up in a fire truck and putting a tourniquet on somebody, and an ambulance showing up, putting them in the back of the ambulance, taking them to the hospital.
No, that's-
That shows the entire picture, that shows who we are.
so.
All right in front
So-
of the river.
So I guess what I'd like to see is diversity. You know, I know the state spots are neat, but they all look the same. They all got the same two providers and the same two fresh uniforms. They don't have Alan out in Fremont answering a call, or, you know, Frank out in the city department, or they don't have a local first responder that comes from his house or the restaurant or wherever. Diversity is what I'd like to see in what we do.
The way they explained to me is their production team, or whatever they call it in-house, we would just tell them what it is we want to do, how long it would to be run for on the TV, the commercial, and then they would film it wherever we needed it to be done, on set or out in the city or wherever. I think it's 15 seconds.
I mean, if he was that long, it's not being much.
I have to wonder though if we shouldn't share the state access with those generic with whichever media we pick, so that they could maybe spin off some of that stuff.
Right.
Make their lives easier,
Yeah.
and they work.
Yeah, I mean, if they've got something to look at, I mean, they're
Yeah.
great spots.
Yeah.
They all
Need
look
to
like.
be localized.
Yes.
That's right.
They need to
That's
have a
right.
local flavor.
Yeah.
So what's the next step?
I guess we'll get together, our group, get with something, see if we can test it.
They should be able to produce something and show you
That's
this
what I'm
is what it's
saying.
gonna look like.
Yeah.
We've given you the topics. And I guess, are we gonna split it?
I'll entertain.
So Jim, in this room are people from 3 different counties. Just as an informal type of thing, if somebody were to walk in and turn on TV for news, how many people would turn on WENY to look at news? Okay, and how many people would turn on WETM to typically look at news?
How many clocks?
It's like real news.
Right, that's, I guess the bigger question is, are we just tied into looking at these two services, or should, like, jumping on what Mike said, should we also look at other avenues of advertising other than TV?
But how long are we gonna do this?
Right.
Well, and I gotta admit, that was kind of a loaded
It's the return on
question
investment.
from Dave, because I don't sit down and watch news, but, yeah, I get WTMs in my face like 20 times a day.
Well,
with the
like
latest
Mike pointed
story.
out though, with WETM, the paperwork that I looked at earlier today that Nikki sent out, you know, they are in every category so far above WENY as far as viewership and so on. So,
That being said,
Yes.
but
but-
also does CBS, not just BBC.
2 channels there. Yeah.
Depending on when they're gonna be on. CBS or ABC ratings, all three, and of course, the race for them.
I think it's split, I'm just the way it's on myself.
They could split it that way, but you're gonna cover the.
At least
You're gonna cover all 3 major networks.
At least the first time to see, and then you're gonna know what the payback is after that. The other thing is this gonna be like starred by us, STREMS? So.
I think it has to be.
Well, because, the reason I say, we've got multitude of agencies here. If this blurb comes on and somebody's, wow, that's pretty cool, and at the end, contact, you're not gonna be able to list Greenwood, Cornell, Ardmore, you know, if you got one contact number, I'm interested, oh, where do you live? Oh, here, let me give you the name of the person. They can get to our website and say, who do I get a hold of?
Or your local ambulance corps.
Yeah.
Similar to
I
what
think it's
FASB
just-
does with their advertisement. When they run their generic commercial, it's the FASB website, and then they coordinate to get the contact person from the local fire department.
Some way that these people are gonna know, because they're gonna say, well, yeah. I want to hold
So
it.
it's a good opportunity to update the website with, and make a new push for agencies to put their links on our website.
That way there, we can get maybe a count too of which agency does better with the advertising by the feedback we get from these people.
Right. Yeah, if they clear through the council website.
Devin or Jeff, you know, if we had a short commercial cut with one of the TV stations, and we very much liked it, do we have access to that for the other TV station to utilize also?
I would say that probably falls under like proprietary, like if WTM filmed it, we used it, it was their material, I don't think that would be.
If we're going to.
Thinking Trump won't share any of his,
He ain't gonna do it.
election stuff with Democrats.
Well, you know, if we're looking at splitting it, you know, between the 2 companies.
I have a feeling that that's the caveat with getting the matching advertisement money, is that they own your content. That's my
I
perception.
think before we figure out how to allocate this money, we need to know exactly what the proposals are, what, you know, what amount of time we're getting, what, if there's internet stuff associated with it.
Some of it's on this thing that Nikki sent out.
Yeah.
You know, it
But the
breaks
one,
down
the
how
one
many
was that, the
commercials,
other
how many
one
segments.
was,
Well, the other
ENY,
one's very small.
WENY only sent them
yeah.
Yeah.
to, WETM has that.
ETM has a packet, that's.
That information is in there.
Right.
And
How-
it's
But
down to
ENY
each day and
didn't
what-
really have that on there.
What's the contractual period for this? Like, is it
6 months.
to be determined, or?
Well, they put in here just a 6-month period, it was like WENY and WSAM, WETM, I think it was a year.
But yeah, we're only giving them one payment.
Right.
So
Whatever you get out of that 2,500.
So we determine how long that gets stretched out, or they determine how long that?
They have a period of time, so he's doing that. If we gave them $5,000 for a year, he would use the amount for the rest of this year for their advertising, because they have to schedule everything. And then going into the next year, they would use whatever was left, so several months right now, say the last quarter of the year, so they would have 4 months worth of advertising, and then that would cost $1,500, and we gave them 5, right? And then they would start begin the next quarter for them, they would schedule it out, and they would use whatever it is for that, and so on and so forth. So if we gave them $5,000 for a year's worth of advertising, or we could do $5,000 for 6 months worth of advertising, it just depends on how we want to spend the money. They just schedule it in, so if we do four months of advertising, and we gave them $5,000 for 4 months, we'd be saturating the market for that 4 months. Or we stretch it out over the course of a year, so it just depends on how we want to spend it.
I'd like to make a motion that you guys go back, get the final proposition from them, see if they're willing to do a test run for you, and then recontact the chair, because there's a good chance the executive committee might have to be called because of our next meeting not in time. But we also got the Christmas season coming up, so let's get this out instead of,
Okay.
I'll say having this dead horse.
Okay, motion's made made and seconded. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstention.
And the only other thing I have is you guys talked about challenge coins. We don't have any funding for that, but there are a couple ideas that are thrown out. If you have more ideas, get them to us. Email. What's that? Yeah, they would be small.
No, that's better. That way when you pull it out at the bar, you're
So there's many different ways of doing the challenge coins. So first off, what we need to do is secure funding somehow, somewhere. And then we can move forward with that. We can have the ideas, trying to get them out there and get,
So ballparks. Ballparks.
If I had to throw a ballpark out there, it depends on the size. Actually, Paige, you can speak, did Southfield get some done?
Yeah. I think we had 500 of them, and that was just over $750.
It's like $3 a coin.
$2.50 a coin or something like that.
But it depends on how they're designed, too.
But we used, when we did ours, we only had one side that was custom. The other side was one of their, it was like the fireman's prayer. So they already had that die there, so we didn't have to pay for a new die to where we have two-sided that they might not have.
So what you're saying is the initial is going to be more than $650.
Right, yeah, because they'd have to make
Setup charges.
two dies to do each side of the coin.
This one, when that's struck as a coin size, do they think that that'll be legible?
We had one, I don't know if I could bring it, but Jimmy has one that has that's probably about that big, and it has 3 different.
Yeah, these are bad images.
Yeah,
Okay.
these were just pulled off the
Yeah.
internet to throw on there.
You can read everything, they're very sharp.
Okay.
The HPPA guy.
A lot of them were done about the size of a silver dollar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, these are just some ideas thrown out there. Anybody has any other ideas? Email me at the public information.
I think it's a great idea, and the question is, for the doctors handing out proves that do an exceptional job. I think it's a good idea.
So I guess, in the interest of kind of moving things along, it would be nice to, I like this one. And I guess I would move that we approve this design and ask you to bring back a firm quote.
I didn't see.
Oh, sorry. I'll send around both. I like the color. I like the color better. Bring back a firm price quote. While those are going around, what we discussed when we had an executive committee meeting last month, is the fact that now that all of our incorporation stuff is done, it's taken care of, we've got the ability to solicit charitable foundations for projects that we figure are worthy.
You guys got one?
I did drafted a request for funding that the executive committee looked at and was good with, but it's been a little harder than I figured, gathering up a list of charitable organizations in a 3-county region. There's not like a database you can go to and just pull an address list down. So that being said, I think if we get a firm quote and I have an idea of what the project is specifically that we want to do, think about charitable foundations, Corning Foundation, Bethesda Foundation, look at Moose Clubs, Elk Clubs, American Legion. Anybody that does Games of Chance is required to donate so much of the proceeds from Bell Jar to 501c corporations on an annual basis. And now we actually can go out and ask for those. And I think we could fund this coin project that way. So, that was my motion. I'd like to approve this particular coin and get a final cost.
If they're doing that, Donnie, can they by chance have a sample? and look
That's
at
what I
it?
would.
And
They
then
do
we can
send
look-
you,
we can look
Yeah.
at it.
they do send you one for you, like a proof, so that you have to approve that it's been done.
Is it a period proof? I mean, it's just like a
It's,
single
it's
product?
exactly like the coin that you're gonna get.
So, but you have to pay for the die to be done to do that, right? Okay.
You said $750 for how many points?
I think it was 500.
Here's the other thing, Donnie.
I
is,
just, listen, I had these made for my office for federal. I actually got some. I don't know. My suggestion would be on that design, you're gonna put the 3 county seals on it, that you make them equal size, and that they actually take up a third of the back of the coin, and use the red and white and blue is just the minute background. Don't do it like that, you never see it. We ended up, when I designed those, I used 3 logos on the back, they were equal in size, and they took up a third of the coin. And the background was a little bit better, to make them any smaller, but you don't see any detailing in whatsoever.
I'm assuming that they won't let you do that too.
Well, what'll happen is typically, at least with the company that we use, they'll send you a photograph proof of the front and back of the coin. And I had ours done custom front and back. But then you can look at it and say, we don't like it, and you can tell, I want this roof here, I want that roof there, and then the next day you get another proof.
Photographs and stuff.
They're gorgeous, at least the ones we did before, they look exactly. That would be my suggestion, at least on that particular design. It's kind of like getting a tax grant before. Just something on there that's too small, that's too much.
How many did you get?
What's that?
How many did you get?
I said 200 maybe before.
Easy done, I don't care what cost.
Just an estimate.
With the old county regime.
Off the top of my head,
And there's
but
many
the issue
companies
that
out
we
there.
had the thing was, custom on both sides, and multi-color on side, on at least one side. So they were custom, but they're only given a certain, their firefighter. So, and that's something you've got to take into consideration, where you want to go, because those are not standard designs.
So let's get an estimate and we'll find them.
The other thing is too, is if you're looking at the docs to hand them out,
Just go on.
stuff like that, and you hit, all the hospitals in our region for some of that stuff. Well, not only the hospitals, but the ambulance services. This is good for the employee morale. I'm sure the ambulance services would kick in. And we do it based on the number of ambulances the ambulance service owns, right? Nationwide. In service at the time or out of service? Go back.
Or we could just say the number of ambulances in New York State.
That works too, huh?
These are all hard.
So that's what we'll do. We'll get that together.
Jim is in charge of that, huh? Jim, okay?
Well, yeah, there's a motion on the table.
Yeah.
Just
say that. What was the motion?
The motion was to tentatively approve this design, and to get a firm price quote.
That design with the bigger,
Well, yes.
Okay, I'll contact each county.
I like the concept, I just, that looks really plain compared to. And these need to be special, and you know, they're not something that everybody gets one. There needs to be some significant film, so. Motion's been made and seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? All right. Anything else for public information? Okay. There's nothing else for public information.
No, the only thing I would suggest is if anybody wants anything on the website, email me, let me know, Brandon. Sure. I'll get them on there. Other than that, that's all I have, unless anybody else has anything.
QI.
I gave them 6 days for
I did receive correspondence, and I'll share it with you afterwards. I shared it with Dr. Kellogg and with Systems Committee. The issue of aeromedical transport has come up again. I got an email from Bill Kennedy regarding an insurance claim for helicopter utilization that was declined by the insurance company because while the patient met the criteria for flight by mechanism, the insurance company's feeling was that the paramedics on scene should have, based on their assessment, canceled the helicopter, or the helicopter crew, based on their assessment, should have canceled themselves. I don't have any specifics on the particular case, but it does bring up a question that we addressed a few years ago and probably bears looking at again. I think the issue is much bigger than the council can make an impact on, but we do need to take a look at whether agencies understand the current New York State trauma protocol with regard to the CDC trauma triage guidelines and getting patients, even based on mechanism, to the appropriate destination in the most appropriate way possible. So I think I'd ask QI committee to take a look at possibly resurrecting that helicopter utilization study in one form or another to figure out if we need to offer an educational component to that.
I believe destination is one of the things that's going to be in the state QI. Is that correct, sir?
Appropriate destination.
We do recognize that sometimes ambulance crews are treated less than kindly when they show up at local facilities with trauma patients. But again, if we refer to the CDC guidelines that are the standard of care, I feel confident that if providers in this region make the right decisions, that they'll have the full support of not only the regional council, but the full support of our REMAC and our REMAC chair as well. So,
Oftentimes, Donnie, when ALS gets to the scene, especially in this bigger county, the fire department, for all good reasons, they believe, that there's a bird in the air. And when we get there, we may be there 5 minutes before the bird gets there, very little time to evaluate. So that's a real tough situation. But you know, we have said for years, appropriate utilization. Inappropriate utilization, it's so damn expensive, and insurance pays very little on this, and they get a $20,000 flight bill and are discharged 3 hours later. That's wrong.
Before we get to just the PCR done.
Absolutely, and it's wrong. We can't allow that to happen. So my point is, do we do enough to help educate the fire guys before they put the bird in the air, or is it appropriate for them not to not put the bird in the air? I don't know. It's a question that you have. It happens more than not, the bird's flying before paramedics are over, so. She had a question.
As a dispatcher for Schuyler County, our protocol is if it's a Charlie or Delta call, like a more vehicle accident, we're the ones that put the helicopter in the air, and the fire and EMS can cancel it. So a lot of times it's not the fire guys in Schuyler County that are asking for it, it's already being set off by the dispatchers.
But they have to know that they have the right, once the appropriate personnel get there to evaluate the patient, to cancel that helicopter.
They do.
The helicopter doesn't like to be canceled. They don't want to go back empty. That's, you know, I think they like to transport the patient. I hope the education has helped them get away from that philosophy, because it must be appropriate utilization.
But I think, if I may, Al, I think the challenge is, when we look at this, you have to look, whether it's here or at the state level, we have to look at both sides of that coin. Because I think appropriate utilization can be defined on both sides of that, relative to what about the times when a helicopter isn't used, that probably should be used, versus the times, you know, and I'm not going to sit here and say that it doesn't get used when it shouldn't be used either, because that's definitely a situation. But oftentimes we forget about that other side of it. You know, and I would agree. I think a lot of it has to do with the education of the people on the ground, related, regardless of level of care, that at any point they can cancel that resource. I think the challenge that we get into is it's very easy to Monday morning quarterback a potential situation for that person that got discharged 3 hours later. God forbid that person had an acute bleed or something. You know, now who's made that decision, and where's that liability lie? I think it's certainly worth, you know, looking into and that type of stuff. I guess I would caution that we do that, you know, in an objective format.
We made great strides a number of years ago, while it was still the Bill Huffner era, when we updated EMD protocols to provide for auto launching in specific EMD codes. We went through the EMD code list, code by code, and we had buy-in from both Aero Medical Services that agreed that we hone that list so that a helicopter was started early in places where it would likely benefit. And we had commitment from both Aero Medical providers that they had no problem auto launching, and it was fine if they got waved off. They're good with flying and being waved off, and they both went on record with that. But you're right. Sometimes in a 5-minute, assessment in the dark of night, occasionally, I think I stress as a field provider more over whether a helicopter or not to have a helicopter was the right call than I stress over anything else.
I think we recently just had a situation, if I recall, in the region.
We get caught in catch-22 in our region because of the rain and the fog.
Right.
So we chase out of a rainy, stormy area with ours by ground to Strong, and then Strong's yelling at us, "Why didn't you fly this guy?" We called 3 helicopters and no one's flying. So we get both sides of it. Why didn't you call him? Why did you call him? You know, so
I think everybody that's in this is well intended. I think all the fire guys are very well intended. They're concerned about that patient. They don't know.
Absolutely.
And I'm not criticizing anybody, but it's just, we have to continue to communicate and learn about this and use it appropriately, because we only have a limited number of helicopters. If it's sent this way and it's needed that way, and it wasn't really needed this way.
Yeah, I mean, this is a difficult decision to make in a hospital with time and resources as to whether to do this appropriately or not.
In a dark cornfield somewhere, and this guy rolled his car 3 times. He's like,
And
I don't have X-ray vision,
I think the points that have been made that I think bear the emphasis on education is, when is it appropriate to call a helicopter? When is it appropriate to wave off a helicopter? And it is okay to wave off a helicopter. The helicopter folks are okay with that, and if you do it appropriately in line with the guidelines, you're not opened up to additional liability because something bad happened because you did the right thing. I think those are the key things to hone in on as we move forward with this.
I think two things, we gotta make sure that the helicopter people still feel the same way.
True.
But number two, don't we have a policy on BLS canceling ALS? So in a lot of the areas of our 3 counties, once the helicopter is automatically dispatched, I don't think BLS can cancel them.
Yeah, they can cancel.
Because in most parts of these counties,
Certainly they can.
may be the closest ALS. The helicopter, by them getting there quicker than the ground crew, they might be the closest ALS to get there.
I thought, back again with Dr. Huffner, that there was a policy from the REMAC about BLS canceling ALS.
And-
But their policy is also considered.
Yes,
Problems, so there's problems with their policy.
two protocol sets ago, I think, the 2012 revisions, we actually eliminated a lot of that because really that unfairly put a burden on the ground ALS providers because we were running into the same issue. If I show up with an ALS ambulance or on a fly car, how many times are you going to tolerate me looking at a BLS crew and saying, you don't really need me, I'm going home? And then again, there's the question, when that one patient goes sideways. We took that out of the protocols a couple sets ago because the same way with calling online medical control for a lot of things. We used to get the answer from the online medical control docs that, well, I can't see the patient, so I can't tell you it's appropriate to do this or do that, which kind of defeated the purpose of consult. So I think the big thing, as we said, is we need to take another look, make sure that by and large we're using our medical resources appropriately, and see if we need to make any tweaks in the system, or if this was just one of those situations where the circumstances, insurance companies look for ways to not pay people. We get it.
Double standards.
But if we need to redo some educational pieces, it's a good opportunity for us, I think, to redo those educational pieces. And for providers to know and understand that when they follow the appropriate guidelines, there are people behind them backing them. And, it kind of came up, earlier, if I go out and I cancel myself off the calls, is my employer going to be happy because I did that? Or what happens when something that I couldn't see or something that I couldn't account for happens, but I did everything appropriately? Or when that ER nurse says, why'd you bring that patient here? You know they shouldn't be here. Well, according to the guidelines, this is the appropriate place. Yes, it sucks to get chewed out by a nurse or by a doctor, but it makes it a little easier when you know that your regional people are standing behind you or standing with you. And we need to reinforce that to our providers in the field. So I'll send that off to QI for a new look and some retooling where we need to. Anything else for QI? Okay. Finance Committee?
Finance Committee did not meet, however, we received a phone call from the state in regards to our budget that was approved. But the budget that she was working with, which is our 2019-2020 budget, expenditures were put on it that were not approved. What happened was MSTAR had a change in their accounting system. The fourth quarter of last fiscal year there was supposed to be about roughly $6,000 spent in that quarter. It was spent in the first quarter of this year. So we're just over $6,000 short. It can be made up. The state approved our budget changes to make up for the equipment that we bought, to stop the bleed. Dr. Morrow's retirement dinner is still up in the air. That is ongoing. Mike has not heard anything from the state saying no or yes. much we can do on that. We did, at the executive committee, can I go into that, those two things? The executive committee, vital signs coming up. We approved sending 3 people's, paying the registration for 3 people. First 3 people that get the information in would be approved. I've got to check with the state, I'm sure it's an allowable amount, but I will verify with the state tomorrow and under our training, or under our travel expenses. And we're also checking on teaching day, doing the same thing we did last year, putting money towards registration. I will verify that, and we approved up to $1,000, I believe is what we came up with. Again, once we get the approval for that, we can go forward, but we would need approval from the council for both of those. And it's not a seconded motion, so we need a motion.
Make a motion. Okay. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
And so on the website, under the private area, we'll be putting the budget of what is spent each month will be put out so that everyone is kept completely in the light of what the council is spending and where it's being spent. That's it.
Anything else for finance? Okay. Executive committee, we did meet earlier tonight. All of the